Welcome everyone to our Payapps webinar in conjunction with Kapitol Group. My name is Nick Opesinas and I'm the Strategic Business Development Director at Zeus. Payapps is one of the suite of solutions that we have within the Zeus umbrella. Today, I have the great pleasure of doing this webinar with Tom Littlehales, who's the Commercial Manager of Kapitol Group. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Nick, how are we?
Yeah, very well, mate. Thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And I think this is an important webinar which we've been looking forward to running, and not only because of the current state, of the environment and things from the construction industry point of view, and the conversation discussions that are going on around tech adoption, but just efficient processes and how businesses are able to maximize those processes in order to help business growth and profitability. Like, we all know that during this time and moving forward, margins are getting tighter and tighter within the construction industry. And I suppose looking at every sort of advantage or avenue to maximize, value of projects. So, we've really been looking forward to this. And I think you guys are a great, case study of that development and growth. So really appreciate you making the time and speaking to our, not only myself, but our attendees and people across the wider industry. So thanks very much, mate.
No problem. And I think, it's definitely what's happened over the last 6 months has really put this sort of a platform and others like it into pretty sharp focus for us. And I'm sure there's a few other businesses out there doing the same thing. So good to share it.
Yeah, no doubt. Just for the attendees, Tom, if you could just start by giving, I suppose, a little bit of background of your work history, but also a bit of a background around Kapitol Group. That'd be a great starting point.
Yeah, so I guess I've had sort of over 15 years before starting at Kapitol, working in national tier 1 and 2 construction businesses. Exposure to projects ranging from a few $100,000 up to 500 million. And working in a range of roles, sort of from site-based roles up to managing business units, which is sort of what I'm doing now. And I sort of just over 2 years ago, I sort of had the opportunity to get involved with Kapitol Group. I think it was, from my perspective, it was kind of not the sort of opportunity that comes along very often where you can establish a business from the start and get involved right from the inception. So, look, the business was, set up 2.5 years ago. Most of the people involved and the directors came out of the tier 1 environment, and the main objective was to bring that level of service and capability to a different part of the market, probably the lower end of the market in terms of value, but try to provide that level of outcome for the people that we're working with and focusing on a number of different sectors. So we've had a pretty busy couple of years. We've had some pretty rapid growth. I think that it's been pretty exciting to be involved in and see the change that we've gone through. And we're actually really in a perverse way relishing the opportunities that have been thrown at us through COVID, because it's really challenging the people in the business. And I think that the team's responded fantastically. It's been great to see.
Yeah, and that's a good point you make around, being put in an environment where it's created challenges on a number of different fronts. And you guys from a business point of view, again, a great case study for businesses that have been able to thrive during this particular time. So I think there's going to be some great learnings out of the last six or so months. And hopefully, like you said, as you're going to sort of outline and we're going to discuss today, there's a number of those to take away. But from a business point of view, you guys over the last 2 years have experienced a great amount of growth, and it's been great to be able to see that and be on that journey with you guys. Just some housekeeping before we formally commence with the Q&A. If you've got any questions for Tom or myself during the session, please feel free to submit your questions through the chat function on Zoom, and I'm more than happy to read those out on your behalf. So, Tom, let's kick off with the first question that I've got, and it's a question that I'm sure has been asked on a number of different fronts in many different forums, in many different situations. Why technology? Why did Kapitol Group decide to take that approach and adopt tech? And and I suppose some of the previous experiences along the way that you guys have had as part of your tech journey through the business.
Yeah, look, I think the why technology piece is probably pretty obvious. I think it's, it's 2020 now. We should be able to do a lot of these things a lot more simply than we have in the past. From the outset, where our view was we want the best possible systems that we can get to support what we're doing. And there's probably been a little bit of trial and error along the way. And, we don't sort of see that as something that will ever stop. It's constant evolution of the way that we're doing things. And I guess, previous experience, a lot, and most people in the industry will be able to relate, there's a lot of sort of semi-manual processes, and we end up taking things out of, if you're operating with an ERP, taking things out of the system to try and interpret them properly and present that information to stakeholders, and it becomes, it's a very manual process, and that's the sort of stuff that, particularly with Payapps, that's something that we're desperate to get away from. I think the way that our business is structured, we're not, we've all had come out of a tier 1 environment where we're working on very large projects that have a long duration, and we've got a lot of time and staff available to do various things. We're operating on smaller projects with shorter programs and probably leaner than we would have in those environments. And that means we need systems that support the people to add the value rather than do the paperwork. So that's fundamentally, it's about efficiency and quality of outcomes. So that's, for us, it's, there's really no why technology question. It's just about choosing the best technology.
Yeah, and just on that point that you've made there around, let's say as a business, you've made that decision to go down the tech path. I'm assuming there's a little bit of groundwork that needs to go in before that, in terms of choosing the right technology and the right solution. So, from a Kapitol Group point of view, what was the approach that you guys took in terms of identifying the key requirements that was going to enable you guys to choose the right solutions?
Look, most of the things we have systems that support us, support what we do, are replications of processes that have existed in businesses we've worked in before, whether it's health and safety, quality, or the commercial and financial space. And so really what we're looking at is what is the process that we have to perform, and how well does, because there's other platforms out there, but how well do each of the platforms that we look at address those processes or conform to those processes, and can we modify those? Do we have the ability to tailor those to our needs? And that probably, at least from my perspective with the commercial side of things, that's how we've looked at it, what fits it best. And I think initially we sort of had a dream of, there would be one do-it-all platform, and that, whilst maybe we'll get there one day, that doesn't exist now, and we've really moved toward an ecosystem of different platforms and different products that support what we do. So it's a work in progress. We're constantly changing our view of things and trying to evolve the different things that we're working with.
Yeah, and I think that ecosystem component that you mentioned is an important point there. Like you said, the nirvana around having a solution that does everything we're not quite there. From a solution point of view and industry point of view, but I think you can easily replicate that by having a best of breed in terms of an ecosystem of solutions that's going to work for you from a business point of view to find those process efficiencies and gains. So I think that's a very important point that you've outlined there.
Yeah. And, the other point, we weren't really constrained by anything we had in the past. So we've come at this fresh. We've really got the ability to choose whatever we like. And again, that really helped open up the options to us, I guess.
Yeah, great. I've already got some questions coming in, Tom, from the attendees, mate. So I'm just going to read out a quick one if that's okay, off the cuff. So they want to get an idea of exactly what tech that you guys are actually using. So I'm assuming that would be either not only on the Payapps front, but on the ERP front also, or anything else that's helping you guys drive efficiencies internally within your business.
Yeah, so look, I think we were the first, or one of the first businesses to engage with Aconex off the bat. So we pretty much signed them up on day one, and that's there as a sort of communication and collaboration platform for all the project stakeholders. I reckon I would have thought most people here would be familiar with it. We engaged Hammertech from more or less day one, so that supports our quality and safety processes. On the ERP front, we sort of had a bit of an interesting journey. We did start with another provider, and we tried to get a lot of the things that we wanted out of that provider to work, and ultimately we couldn't. And Payapps probably had a little bit to do with this, and we made the decision to change our ERP earlier this year. So we went through a transition process to Jobpack, which was sort of from March through to June of this year, which is hard work, but we managed to get through it relatively cleanly. And so that's kind of our suite of products at the moment. We've recently, and this is probably something that we wanted to do regardless, but was really kicked along by COVID. We've been leveraging DocuSign quite a lot, even though it's a relatively simple platform. We're just to use that to engage with our subbies and run a lot of internal processes. So we've sort of got a body of work where we're looking at how we can refine that moving forward and really, fully digitize all our internal processes. As I said, we're still on a bit of a journey, and we're sort of looking for the right solutions to our problems. But we feel like particularly over the last sort of 3 months, we've started to feel like what we've got is really working, and it's sort of freeing up our people. And definitely, we can sort of say hand on heart that we're paperless at the moment.
Yeah, great.
Which is a pretty big deal for a construction business, I think.
Massive, massive. Look, we'll touch on the Jobpack side of things shortly in our further discussions, but I want to bring the conversation around to collaboration. So a big part of what you guys do is centered around dealing with subbies and subcontractors. So what are the typical challenges not only you guys face, but they face when working together on projects? Now, I know there's some out there, so I'm keen to sort of get your thoughts around what are some of the challenges that you're seeing on your projects from an industry point of view.
Look, I think the biggest struggle we have in terms of subby engagement is around quality of communication and clarity of communication. Everyone's coming at this from their own particular point of view, their own business's position, and making sure that we're aligned when we enter into an agreement. That's what we do. That's sort of one of the core challenges. And so really that clarity of communication, and then as we move forward, the ability to easily collaborate on projects. And that's what things like Hammertech and Payapps really support, is a lot of the day-to-day stuff that's not, it's not the actual work that we're doing. This doesn't pour the concrete or erect the steel or install the joinery. It doesn't do that stuff, but it takes the burden of, making the money flow and the compliances flow. That it takes that burden away from the subcontractors and from us. So I think to me, fundamentally, it's about communication. That's the biggest challenge we have, I think, as a business and as an industry.
Yeah. And I think that's that communication aspect of it is very important, not only internally within the business, but also with your subbies that you're using. I mean, anytime you're amending a process or trying to implement something new, you need that buy-in from not only key internal stakeholders within the business, but your externals that you're utilizing to make it work. And I think again, coming back to the way that you guys have done it is a great blueprint as part of that communication, collaborative sort of model. How did you find your interactions with the subbies when you were trying to introduce and implement the likes of a Payapps or a Hammer Tech? How did you guys sort of approach it on a communication front?
There was probably a few stages to it. I think we sort of warmed them up. I mean, we had a relatively small subcontractor base when we went live with the system, so we warmed them up to that this was what we were doing. And when we went live, we had some communications that Payapps obviously helped us put together to let them know that this was happening. I guess our implementation of the system and the way the system's set up, we've got the ability to sort of cover the gap. You know, if the subbies aren't fully or using the system properly, or the way that we want them to use it, we've got the ability to cover that gap. And that's part of the collaboration piece where, you know, it is a very flexible platform. And that's, you can sort of see the improvement over a period of 6 months, where from when we went live, sort of, I think it was around January or February, to now where, you know, it's really working very cleanly. And you can see gradually, you know, and we all remember when Aconex first appeared on the scene, it was, you know, try not to swear, but, you know, a lot of the subbies were, what is this you've just made us do?
Yeah.
And I think we didn't have that kind of reaction, and you know, we weren't the first on the scene either. So most of the subbies, or a lot of the subbies, had seen it before, and were used to working with the system. But you know, equally there are a lot that hadn't, and it's really, you know, over time they've embraced it, and it's helped them improve the quality of their processes. And a lot of them have sort of, you know, implemented it properly in their business and integrated it with their systems. So. It's, you know, it's not an overnight thing, but definitely you can see the improvement.
Yeah, great. I mean, let's look at the current environment now. So currently, the environment that we're in from a COVID point of view has clearly had a huge impact on the industry in various shapes and forms. And obviously, you guys haven't been immune to that. But has the use of technology helped you navigate those challenges more than what you would have thought if you guys were still stuck with relatively manual, arduous processes?
Look, I hate to think what this would have looked like 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, trying to do what we do, which is a pretty hands-on, you know, interactive industry. And, you know, when you look at a lot of our processes that we have internally to invoice our customers and, you know, engage and pay our subcontractors and run, you know, make sure that all the people who have a vested interest in the process are properly informed, and, you know, we're getting things properly approved through our own business. I mean, I know what it looked like 2 years ago when we were doing it with paper. It was horrible. And that, even to do that with a much smaller workload and in a pre-COVID era, it was, you know, that was hard. And now to be honest, I don't know how you could do it without it right now. It's made our life a lot easier, and that's across a number of fronts.
Yeah. And I think, look, not only in the current environment, but, you know, but moving forward, that remote workforce is going to be somewhat of an ongoing thing moving forward. And I think having the necessary tech to be able to keep that remote workforce connected, to still ensure that business continuity is still going, you know, efficiently, and, you know, you're getting stuff done that you need to do from a progress claim perspective, or you know, managing your contractors appropriately, I think still going to be an important part that tech is going to play in terms of keeping that remote workforce connected in some way, shape or form.
Yeah, and look, you know, construction industry, you know, a lot of our workforce is remote.
Yep.
Anyway, you know, we have sites distributed all over Melbourne, and you never know, they might be distributed all over the country one day, and a lot of that information flows back into our office here, and that's, you know, because people want or need to be part of that process. And, you know, the last thing we need are sort of envelopes flying all over the place, or mill folders and all that sort of stuff. It's just, it's ripe for things going wrong. And we, you know, talking about the subby payment process, you know, sitting here on ninth day of the month, I've got full visibility to what we've got to pay our subbies, and I can see where it is in the process, and I can see who's got to action it. And, we'll basically have all our subbies certified by close of business tomorrow. Which is a massive improvement. That's straight into our ERP. So that's a massive improvement on where we were even 6 months ago. So
yeah, great. Just changing tack a little bit. In a couple of weeks, we've got a webinar with Ivan Fernandez. He's from a research company called Frost and Sullivan. And essentially what they'll be looking at is trends that are impacting the construction industry. So when Frost and Sullivan look at technology like Payapps or a Hammertech, they refer to it as a collaboration software, not just a payment application. First part of the question that I've got is that the experience that you guys have had with Payapps and other solutions that you've implemented? And then two, how has it benefited your relationship with your subcontractors on the Payapps side? That's sort of what I'm keen to get a bit more of an understanding of from your end.
Well, it's absolutely about collaboration. I mean, we've had a process historically, which is, however subcontractors get their claims into us, whether it's via email or Aconex or fax. I even had one turn up in the post the other day. We've had that sort of, which is just poor quality. It leads to delays. It leads to people not knowing what their outcomes are going to be. And, we've got a Security of Payments Act, which we're supposed to comply to as well. So, there's a lot of stuff and it facilitates that interaction. We've got that, comes in and the speed at which we can do this stuff and, pick up, if we are going to make an adjustment to somebody's claim, it's fair to them that they know that quickly and that they can manage and plan their business around it. And that's that, because, we have the same issue. If a client's going to adjust our payment claim, we want to know about it pretty quickly so that we can manage the consequences of that. And so it's collaboration, but it's fundamentally about clear communication and clear outcomes for the stakeholders, I think.
Agreed. And I think anytime you can enhance that relationship with your subbies, I think is an absolute positive for any builder, because I think that's a key element of completing projects that you need to within that efficient manner. But being able to utilise quality subbies on repeated projects. So having that transparency and visibility on both ends of the spectrum, not only you guys on a head contractor GC level, but the subbies that are working on your project, so they can seamlessly log into the system and see exactly where their progress claim is going to help them, from a business point of view, whether it be cash flow related or just from an administrative point of view. So implementing the processes that you guys have done for your business, I think is actually helping them as a byproduct streamline their own processes. Yeah,
and I mean, look, I'll be lying if I said all the subbies were ringing us up telling us how great it is, but they definitely, we have had a reasonable amount of good feedback. We're saying, well, look, before this, it was almost a lottery, what you're going to get paid at the end of each month, and whereas we've done a full 180, and they know we're fully compliant. We're getting things out in accordance with SOPA, and that's. I think people underestimate how important that is to subcontractors and how important it is to how they manage their cash flow and run their businesses, particularly at the moment.
Going live with a new solution with staff in isolation. What was that like, mate? Challenges, the approach that you guys took, the success that you had. I'm sure many are keen to know a bit more about that.
Yeah, look, so we were talking about the other week. I think we managed to make this about as hard as we possibly could. We were running with our previous ERP up to March of this year. We wanted to get really, as I said, Payapps drove a little bit of the decision to change the ERP, and we wanted to get Payapps live as quickly as possible for the reasons I've talked about. And we've had experience with the system previously, so it wasn't wasn't an unknown thing, and we knew that this was going to give us better quality outcomes to our supply chain. So we wanted to get that online as quickly as possible. So we went down the route of having Payapps as effectively a standalone system, or which was, took all of half an hour to switch on, really, because all you need to do is go in and set up the contracts and off you go. Where it probably got a little bit dicey was once we had Jobpack fully operational, and then we went through the integration of the two. And that was probably something that we were very nervous about. Ultimately, we had no real issues. Payapps, the support team at Payapps sort of helped us work through the tying together of the contracts. I don't know what the correct or the syncing of the contracts across the two systems. And we probably had about a month there where, payments would throw up. We would have errors between the two systems, but, the team were there to support us. How do we fix this? Yep, cool. Someone would jump in and guide us through it. So it was relatively quick between our team and the Payapps team to get those problems ironed out. So we had, I would have said there was probably 2 months there where it was a bit, there was a bit of mucking around between the two, but now sort of 2 months post, it's seamless. So for us, it was, our biggest concerns didn't really materialise, which was great. As I said, we knew what we were getting. It was just a case of how easily we could get it operational the way that we have.
Yeah, great. You mentioned Jobpack earlier. So you're using Jobpack as your ERP.
Yeah.
Is there any particular reason you guys chose them, and what are some of the benefits that you guys have experienced to date with integrating Jobpack with Payapps?
Look, we ultimately went with Jobpack because I think, and we're sort of getting off topic a little bit, but there's a lot of systems that manage projects well. Jobpack manages businesses a lot better. And, when we're managing, I think at the moment we would have probably 12, 13 live projects, whether they're sort of pre-commencement, delivery, or slightly post. And so there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of moving parts. And what we found with other systems that we've used and we've seen is that the visibility across the business wasn't as great as it is with Jobpack. And some of the sort of more advanced features and the built-in workflow functionality is, again, going back to where we've got people distributed across the place. We still need to have these processes in place, and we need to be able to have them happening in an online or digital environment. Where Payapps and Jobpack, that integration is really powerful. Obviously, the processing of the payment claims, the pulling the information out of Jobpack and then pushing it back in once the payment's certified, that's sort of the base case or the simple part. The management of variations is massive for us. We can see, whenever a subcontractor puts a variation in, we've got to synchronise that with our ERP, which forces a lot of compliance from our team. And we've always got visibility. What are subbies asking us for? Is certainly in the past we've had the proverbial drawer full of invoices or variations that people don't know about, and getting lots of surprises out of projects because whether it's people not knowing or for whatever reason they think that the outcome is going to be poor if they present this information. And what this forces is just compliance all along the way. We've always got a picture of, and every claim that comes through, we can see what the sub is asking for. Whether we like it or not, we have to deal with it. We can't just sort of kick it down the road. We have to deal with it. We have to put it in the system, and we have to give the subby feedback on our view of their claim, positive or negative or otherwise. So it's to me that's hugely powerful compared to what we've had in the past, where you're really relying on people to enter things in the system, and the weakest link in these processes is the people, unfortunately. So
yeah. I've got a question here, Tom, that's come through, and it's around the variation component as part of that progress claim aspect. How have you found that the solution that you implemented with, obviously with Payapps, has had a part in managing the variation process a lot easier between head contractor and subcontractor?
Look, as I just said, I think the forcing you to synchronise between your systems that's a massive advantage, because it gives you really clear picture of your exposure to the subcontractor. I mean, our view is that, you know, Payapps isn't the platform for the submission or the assessment or the approval of the variation, but it certainly helps us see what the sub is asking for. And I would say it speeds it up. If nothing else, it just speeds up the process and speeds up the outcomes on both sides of the fence.
Mm-hmm. Yep, great. Thanks for answering that, Tom. What are some of the other ways that you guys have benefited from the use of technology? So I know we touched on it previously around you know, processes and things like that, but you know, from a compliance point of view and an efficiency point of view, how have you found that the use of technology has benefited you guys specifically?
Well, the compliance piece is huge. I think, you know, the spend with the subcontractors is the lion's share of our expenditure in the business, and that the ability to do that quickly and have everyone right from the CA up to the directors have full visibility of that process and put protocols in place as to what will allow what is a compliant claim and what is not a compliant claim. That's huge.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that, you know, we really haven't seen any other system provide that to the same level of quality that Payapps does. And so that it's a quality outcome and obviously efficiency. Like I said, we're probably handling now something like 150 subby claims a month, and the nature of our business is that they all go up to the directors. So, you know, that's a lot of information for them to handle, and for them to be able to quickly and easily work through it and really deal with things by exception. That's, again, it's a massive improvement on a paper-based process and people collating information or try to attach things to emails and, you know, the sort of old school processes that we had. So it's time and quality.
Yeah,
fundamentally.
Right. I've had a couple more questions come through, Tom, but I'll ask you this one before I get to some of the a couple of the audience ones. So, Kapitol Group seems to be very focused on being a sustainable business. So technology plays a big part, obviously, in what you guys do and how you run operationally. But what are some of the other areas that are helping you guys to be more sustainable?
Obviously, the culture of the business is really important. You know, we want people to enjoy coming to work, and we want people to enjoy doing the work that they do. And that's, you know, construction is a pretty high pressure environment. I think everyone here would know that. And so we do a hell of a lot of work trying to promote that within the business and also outside of the business, and sort of demonstrating our point of difference to the industry. I think also looking at a range of sectors and adaptability, that's probably another, from a sustainability perspective. You know, we think right now there's a huge shift in what sort of work the industry will be doing over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think paramount in our team is the ability to shift. You know, maybe we're not going to be building lots of apartments over the short term, or maybe we're not going to be building lots of retail or commercial buildings, but, you know, we still need to be doing work. So we've got to be adaptable in the way that we do that work. But,
no, continue on. Go.
No, I think they're probably the two key things for us, obviously outside of technology. It's, you know, anything that we do that sort of improves efficiency or simplifies or improves people's enjoyment. That's what brings people to work.
Yeah, exactly. And just on that, and this probably I can tie in with one of the questions that's been asked by the attendees around how did you guys go about getting everyone on the same page around that technology conversation? I know a lot of it is driven by leadership at the top. But what was the journey that you guys went on in terms of key internal stakeholders within the business going, yep, this is what we want to do, and we're hell-bent on going down this path and executing?
Look, to be honest, it's not hard for us. Like, you know, we're hell-bent on having the best solution for whatever it is we're doing. So, and I think the directors sort of lead by example. You know, if something's not working, we change it. It's that simple. And when we change, we look for the best possible solution, and that might be maybe that'll only be the right solution for a period of time, and then we need to look for something else. But really, that's sort of embedded in our culture, and you know how we view what we do is we're constantly looking for the best way to do it, not be dictated to by, well, this is the way we've always done it. You know, we don't have 20 years of legacy systems and all that other stuff. You know, people that are particularly wedded to a thing. It's, you know, it's all about, we just care about what's the best way to do it, and we will pursue that relentlessly.
And I think what you've just highlighted there is an important point. You guys don't necessarily have the background of having a legacy system or a process that's been set in stone for the last 20 or 30 years. You guys effectively had a blank canvas to work from. But I think further to that, even if there is a business that has had a particular way of doing things for 20 or 30 years, but it's still quite manually arduous or, from that side of things, I still think there has to be a conversation that has to be had around, well, how can we do things better? How can we improve our processes, internally to make them more efficient, not only for us internally, but for our externals that we're dealing with. So I think that's an important point. Yes, no legacy, but still having those conversations around how you can be better from a business point of view.
Yeah, I can't really picture a world where you're not having those conversations. You're not challenging yourself regularly about, is this the best way to perform this function in the business? It's for us, it's like I said, it's built in, but I can imagine there's places out there that would be, it would look like it's a big challenge to sort of, whether it's shifting an ERP or simply just trying to, add a system or integrate another system into their ERP or their other processes. And I think what we've talked about is you've got to evaluate what it's going to add. There might be an awful lot of pain in the process. And as I said, we've been lucky in that we have changed an ERP, and that was hard work, but, we weren't dealing with 20 years of information.
Yeah.
But you've ultimately got to look at what are the benefits you're going to gain on the other side of that, and really, you've got to look at your staff and say, well, this is the most valuable resource we have, are our people. And if our people are frustrated by a process or feel like they're wasting time on a process, that's not good.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to get no disagreement from me on that, mate. So, so another question that's come through here. Tom, what do you see as the next frontier for the construction industry, and where do you see tech advances over the next 5 years in the construction industry playing a role?
Look, we're certainly looking at a number of internal systems, as I talked about. I think a lot of things that we do are team activities, basically. We've got, whether it's, and a lot of it on the procurement side, there's a hell of a lot of collaboration externally with our subcontractors and trying to manage that information and that communication effectively. And then once we make a decision to award a contract, how we do that effectively. And as I said, we've sort of we've got a bit of a halfway house at the moment with how we're doing that. We see there's a huge opportunity for a platform to sort of address a lot of those challenges. That's probably where my focus is at the moment, and just improving the quality of those outcomes. I'm sure there's other things out there, and also how we engage with sort of our key stakeholders, which are clients, and how we give them better transparency to the process. And again, there's a lot of things out there that sort of facilitate that, whether it's sort of simple stuff like video, having video cameras on sites that give them updates on progress, and how we can sort of get them more included in the delivery process, get them better visibility to what we're doing and the challenges that we face and why we need to do things the way that we do them, rather than sort of being this sort of, we're a black box. It's not how we really want to be working. We're happy to open up the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Just conscious of time, Tom. So that, geez, 45 minutes goes pretty quickly. So I suppose just some final thoughts just to wrap up. So, do you have any final pieces of advice for builders or people within the construction industry who are looking to take a similar approach to what you guys took and move to a digital first business, a paperless business where they're not reliant on, like you said, on manual processes? They want to automate these processes which are bogging them down from a process efficiency point of view. Any final pieces of advice for people?
I'll just do it. But the a big part of it's preparation. You need to, obviously you've got your internal stakeholders that you've got to manage through the process, and you've got to make sure that your supply chain, particularly in the case of Payapps, is ready for the change. And a lot of businesses out there, they're very broad. There's a lot of moving parts in this, and I think just being prepared, I think, is the key. But I think once you've convinced yourself that the outcome is going to be positive, it's just about forcing yourself to jump in and do it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, once the discussions have been had, I think it's just got to be a push the button approach to it, where you've got to commit to the process from the very beginning. But you've also got to have a way in terms of getting, like we said, buy-in from all key internal stakeholders, that are potentially going to be using any form of newly implemented software, and so that everyone from day one is on board to ensure that implementation is as seamless as possible. Yes, as you've outlined, there's going to be some kinks to iron out in the initial part. That goes without saying with any sort of new implementation of software. But the quicker you have that buy-in from the beginning and everyone's across the board in terms of what they need to do, the smoother that process becomes long-term. And I think the quicker that you get those ROIs in terms of investing a platform such as a Payapps or a Hammertech.
And I think don't pretend that it's going to be seamless. I mean, we certainly had some challenges along the way, and that was unique to probably the way that we did it. But it's not getting sort of put off by the setbacks you might have or the difficulties along the way, because I think we can say pretty confidently at the tail end of it that it's worked, and it's been a massive improvement to how we perform this particular task. And so the benefits are really clear for us, and that's so.
Yeah, good to hear, mate. Just before I wrap up, just got a couple of additional questions here. Tom, these are not related to Kapitol Group necessarily. Does Payapps integrate with Cheops as well as it sounds like it integrates with Jobpack? The answer to that is yes. Whoever submitted that question, more than happy to have that conversation with you offline. And then the other question, does Payapps also manage general supplier invoices paperless? Yes, it does. Again, whoever's submitted that question, more than happy to have a chat with you offline about that. Tom, mate, it's been great. So look, really appreciate your time, and I think you've provided some great insight, for people that have attended the webinar today around that journey from a technology evolution point of view. So, really appreciate your time, really appreciate your insights, and I'm sure a lot of people have got benefit out of today. So thanks very much, mate.
No, cool. Thanks for having us, and I said happy to share sort of our experience. So
excellent.
luck with it.
No problem. everyone who attended, thank you very much for attending today. Hopefully you got benefit out of today's session. Look, I dare say in the coming weeks or months, we will be running a couple more of these, so stay tuned. But for now, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks, Tom, again, and thanks everyone else for attending.
Cool. Thanks for having us.
Nice. Thank you.
Cheers.